She's got a lot of good knowledge. She did hand out a printout that she brought with her that she will be going over. So again, ask her any questions that you might have, either for work or for outside of work. Okay, Teresa? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Donna. So, as Donna said, my name is Teresa. I'm a registered nurse at Beacon Memorial Hospital. I recently took over the infection control position back in September. Previously, I was working as a surgical nurse, so I balanced my time between surgery and infection control. But recently, with the events of COVID, I have worked full-time in infection control, so we kind of dive deep into this every single day. We're pretty up to snuff on what the newest regulations are from the NDH and CDC. So this is going to be very relaxed, informative. So if you do have a question, please interject, raise your hand, I don't care. We want to make sure that you guys, like Donna said, feel comfortable and sometimes knowing the why behind a policy or a procedure gives you a better understanding as to why you should do it and the reasoning for it. So kind of just briefly starting, initially when COVID really kind of showed its face in the US, we had this anticipation that it was going to be here for a couple of weeks and then we were going to get on with our lives again, right? Really that's not how it's the case as of right now. So if previous models were accurate, we should have already had 3 to 4 surges by now within our community. Our community, Meeker County, hasn't seen that surge yet. But this is something that we have to learn how to adapt with because people that are above all of our pay grades are stating that this is going to be around for a couple of years now. Okay, so we have to figure out what's called our new norm until that vaccine is created. COVID-19, how as an organization you can help stop the community spread and keep your patients and your staff safe. Again, coming from a healthcare perspective, we want you and encourage you to stick to CDC and MDH because they are our governing body. That's where we get direction from. The media can sometimes put a bit of a twist on it and only show you certain parts of what is really happening. So please reference the CDC or MDH if you have any further questions. So first to kind of discuss what COVID-19 really is. So this is a viral respiratory illness caused by a type of coronavirus that is not typically been found in people originated in bats. Some of the signs and symptoms that can range from with coronavirus is fever, shortness of breath, to headaches, nausea, diarrhea. So when you look back at kind of when COVID-19 really kind of started showing up in our communities, you saw that the main symptoms were shortness of breath, fever over 100.4, and cough. Now we're seeing that widen or a broader spectrum of symptoms because of the way that it's changed. And we're seeing that community spread. And we're learning more about the virus itself, too. So, and there's a lot to learn yet, just because this is a new illness that, we're still working on discovering what it actually is. We have seen an increase in our numbers in Meeker County because why? Anyone an idea? We're opening up our testing to a broader population. So initially, when COVID kind of came about, we had that availability to test. But then we quickly realized that we didn't have the amount of testing kits for the population, or for the amount of people coming in. So then NDH had dialed that and put that criteria who could be tested to a smaller amount of population or criteria of people. But now as more test kits have become available, we have been able to open that up to a larger spectrum of individuals. So that's why we're seeing our numbers increase. At Beacon Memorial, we opened up that triage line, probably a couple weeks into this whole ordeal when it was really starting to ramp up in the United States. And if you look back at some of those symptoms that individuals called in with, the fever, the shortness of breath, but maybe my fever just wasn't as high as what the criteria was saying, the extreme fatigue, the muscle aches. Coronavirus has probably been in our community a lot longer than we know since our first case was confirmed. Let's see here. So from what we're seeing in rural Meeker County, the majority of our cases are able to recover at home rather than being hospitalized, which is a very, very good sign. So let's kind of talk about how it spreads and kind of incorporate what you guys are doing with CCT to help mitigate the transmission, keep yourself safe, and keeping your patrons safe, right? So it's thought to be is spread through person-to-person contact through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. These droplets then land in the mouths or noses of individuals who are in close contact with the infected individual. So I'm going to go ahead and breathe that infected respiratory droplets in, and then I'm exposed to it. The close person-to-person contact is defined as being within 6 feet of an individual for longer than 10 minutes. So, kind of looking at how long does it take you to hook up a wheelchair passenger? How long does that on average take somebody? About 5-10 minutes, or how long would you say?
Real close.
What?
Real close to, I'd say 5 minutes.
Okay.
At most.
Okay. So just for kind of keeping that in mind, I think part of when I started this position, I really wanted to keep my common sense at the forefront, because if you overthink some of this stuff, you're going to go nuts. So a lot of it is basic stuff. And I think a lot of the times when we look at exposure, is we forget about that exposure length and time. So we this morning discussed that exposure time is going to be included from the time that you bring the patient out, put your lift down, wheel the patient up. That's going to all be kind of included in that. So just touch on that in a second here. Another route of transmission is by touching a surface or an object that has the virus on it. So if I coughed in my hand and I am infected and I got on your bus and then I touched that side rail and I went about my business, got off the bus, the next person comes, touches that side rail, and I proceed to touch my face again, I'm now potentially exposed to it. Also, the real kicker for looking at transmission is that people are testing positive without having any symptoms, so they're asymptomatic. So we're really looking at something that's very difficult to predict because of the different routes of transmission. Community risk, so really anyone is at risk for getting COVID unless you adhere to strict isolation. That means strict isolation is that you're staying at home, you're having your stuff delivered to you, you're not interacting with anybody. So by that, I just kind of like to have people have that in their mind, because you worry about the interaction that you have with community members. Do they have it or do they not? As a CCT bus driver, will you know if someone has COVID? No. Because by law, we're kind of bound to what's called HIPAA. We can't always disclose certain information. So that's why, even at the hospitals, what we're doing is we're treating everyone as if they're infected. You treat them as a PUI. So that kind of goes into what kind of PPE do you wear in order to protect yourself and to protect your patrons that use your service. So I know CCT has provided you with a face shield and a cloth mask, correct? And then we also have available, we have some gloves and we have gowns. So part of the reason why we want you to wear the mask and face shield, if you look at the sheet, it talks about source control. We also offer our passengers a cloth mask, right, when we have them get on the bus. So we encourage that our passengers wear this cloth mask because it's called the source control. It's controlling their respiratory droplets from you and from them spreading, right? So if you have your cloth mask on and your face shield, and then the passenger has their cloth mask on, it says that it's going to be a low risk, and there's no risk, no exclusion from work if that person were to actually be positive. So it's very important that you wear the bare minimum of your simple face mask and your face shield when interacting with your passengers. I know that it's uncomfortable. A couple weekends ago, I was on call for surgery. I had to wear my mask and my face shield throughout the entire case, and that was a couple-hour case. I'm dripping in sweat. It's uncomfortable. It's hot. But we are here to protect ourselves. We're here to protect our people that we serve, right?
What about goggles?
Goggles are
Like a
fine.
sunglass, a safety glass.
Safety glasses, the goggles are fine as long as they cover the tops of the head and the sides. And that's something that CDC even recommends that you can wear. But it just has to cover the top of the eyes and the sides. So, but yeah, goggles are fine as instead of a face shield. So again, wear your cloth mask though too. Serve and protect our people, wear that, source control. So I know that there's gonna be a situation where, your passengers might not be able to wear a mask, or they refuse. We can't control that. But there are certain medical conditions where a patient or a passenger may not be able to wear it, like COPD, or I have severe anxiety, and it's only gonna cause you more harm if you do put that on. Those are situations that we can't control. But however, if you wear the bare minimum of your face mask and your face shield, your risk is going to be low according to the CDC on that exposure risk template that we use at the hospital too. So we do encourage that. So before we had talked a little bit about what the process is with the gowns, and we'll talk about this later too, Donna, but we kind of talked a little bit after our first session that, you know, maybe it's not something that you have to implement because it is just pushing a wheelchair. And if it is on average less than 10 minutes, should you wear the gown? Because you know, gowns are something that's kind of hard to get a hold of right now, and it's my understanding you've been given your one, and then you don't want to infect your driver's area, right? Is that kind of my understanding is the hesitancy to wear the gown? So we will have a further conversation on what maybe our recommendations are for that, but because sometimes we are, our biggest risk of exposure or contaminating ourselves is doffing or taking off of our personal protective equipment. So looking at it in both ways, protecting ourselves as well.
Question for you. However, if we don't wear the gowns, I know that the reason is because we get into our area and we're gonna expose there. But if we're not wearing the gowns, we're gonna expose it anyhow.
However, I mean, the thing, when you look at the chart, when you're not wearing, if the patient isn't wearing their source control mask, you know, then maybe that's something that you would implement the gown. But if you're not wearing it, you know, if you're not able to have more than just the one gown, at the hospital we kind of think, is that more of a contaminant than anything? You know what I mean? So we were kind of throwing that around when I got back from my first session. And it's just something that we kind of talked about is if you don't have access to multiple gowns where you can change out after each interaction, it might be more of a contaminant. But if you are wearing a bare minimum and you're not brushing up against the patient, you're only physically, or patient, I'm sorry, I'm in hospital mode, passenger, you know, you would not be at as high of risk.
Teresa, why don't you also, and move it further down, also explain that before that session happened afterwards, what you talked about at the first session of the gowns. How often they should be changed?
Okay, so for right now, you know, we'll look into that further, but what I talked about at the first session, so once, you know, Donna has gotten, or has placed an order for more gowns. So let's say hypothetically you have, you know, a plethora of gowns and you have to be in close contact with somebody. You're gonna put your gown, or your gloves and your gowns on, you're already gonna have your face shield on, you're already gonna have your simple mask on. You're gonna wheel the patient up, you're gonna hook them up to the wheelchair safety strap, and then you're gonna doff your stuff and you're gonna take your gown and your gloves off and then perform hand hygiene. And then you can go ahead and get into your driver's seat. Because it's my understanding is, you know, your driver's seat is kind of your safe zone, you feel more clean there, kind of a deal. So then once you get the patient, or excuse me, the passenger off the bus, you would put a new set of gowns and a new set of gloves back on to move the patient off the bus. But that's when you have that extra set of, yeah. Because otherwise, you know, if you only have that one gown and then, you know, you go and take care of your passenger and then get into your area with that gown on, you know, now you're potentially, you know, you came into real close contact, brushed up against them. So I mean, that's kind of the one that we were looking into for a little further for you. Yeah, it's kind of that gray area, and nothing about COVID-19 is black and white, honestly. It's kind of, it's been a real treat to decipher some of the things. So part of protecting ourselves and protecting or wearing this equipment is we're protecting ourselves and we're also protecting the population that we serve. And you have a vulnerable population that you work with, right? You typically have dialysis patients, nursing home patients, Anyone really over 65 is at risk. So implementing these procedures or these practices shows our community that we can still function with this COVID-19, but we're also doing it in a safe manner. We're trying to protect you. Let's see here. Oh, I wanted to touch a little bit about mask etiquette. So sometimes you see, and I don't mean to pick on Walmart, I did that quite a bit on the first session, but it just comes to mind. You see individuals walking around with their mask on in Walmart below their nose or below their chin. Mask etiquette means that the mask is up to your bridge of your nose and covering the bottom of your chin fully. So you, sir, have a perfect example of how this is appropriate. So it needs to cover the nose and it covers the bottom of the chin. Sometimes you see individuals walking around with it below their nose that isn't doing anything. It's not effective anymore, okay? Your plexiglass partitions in your rigs are perfect. That provides an extra barrier. And I did touch about this on the first session, but there is such a thing called hypercapnia, which is high levels of CO2. So you breathe that out and you breathe that into your mask. After long-term use of wearing your mask, you can experience headaches, nausea, vision changes, because you have retained levels of CO2. So it's very important, yes, to wear your PPE, but it's also important to allow yourself to get some fresh air. Take your mask off, get some fresh air back into your body, and take some time without that stuff on. So it was decided at the first session that it was okay to do so when you are in your driver's seat behind your partition if you needed a little break from your mask and your PPE. So how do we stop the spread? So hand hygiene is extremely important in breaking the spread or breaking the chain of any kind of infection, not just COVID. And surprisingly, this isn't a new concept. People have really gone a little bit wild with preparing for their extreme hand washing by taking all of the hand soap off the shelves, but we really encourage you to do frequent hand washing, either with soap and water or with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Typically, after about 8 times of using hand sanitizer, you should be washing your hands with soap and water. Remove your PPE when appropriate. So we did talk a little bit about the gowns and how are we going to mitigate that, how should we move about that with only one gown. We're going to place a call to NVH and see what kind of recommendations they have for you, Donna. And I got a person that I've been working with, so I'll place a call to them and we'll get that figured out for you. So sometimes too, you see individuals wearing gloves. If you're going to be putting gloves on, you want to make sure you take them off after you are done assisting that patient, because whatever you touched on the passenger and then you go touch your steering wheel, if you didn't take your gloves off, all you're doing is cross-contaminating, right? So take your PPE off when it's necessary. Wipe down the seats and handrails after each passenger use if possible, or just more frequently if that's not feasible to do it after every passenger use. We can't really control what the passenger does outside of when we're not providing services to them, but we can control what's going on in our own lane. We can control how clean it is, how often we're cleaning. We can encourage them to wear masks, and we can wear our PPE as recommended as well. Stay home if you're sick. This is a huge one. Especially looking at community spread right now, we want you to stay home if you're not feeling well. And that could be the most mild symptoms, because again, we're seeing that COVID has symptoms that are mild, moderate, or even severe. So I mean, your simple headache might just be a headache, or it could be a possible, sign and symptom of COVID. I just shared the example, my friend tested positive and all she had was a headache and some fatigue because she worked a long weekend, didn't think anything of it, and she was positive. So that's why we want you to stay home if you're not feeling well. Because this is such a broad range of symptoms. Let's see here. We realize that we need to work and provide for our families, and I think healthcare workers, and probably you fall into the same line, that we know that people need our help. So that's why we go to work when we're maybe not feeling the best. But during this time, like I said, we ask that you stay home and kind of follow the guidelines that MDH has set out for us to follow. Seek medical care if you're unable to manage at home, whether that's emergency services or a simple call to your family provider. and just saying, hey, you know, I'm not really feeling well. They might direct you to the triage line, the COVID triage line, or they may even say, hey, we need to set you up for a video chat, or even we need you to come into the clinic because it doesn't sound like you're doing so good. Okay? MDH is recommending that you stay home and self-quarantine yourself until you feel better, meaning your symptoms have improved. It's been 10 days since you first felt sick and have not had a fever for the last 3 days without using fever-reducing medications. And that's kind of whether you're COVID positive or COVID negative. So you want to stay home until symptoms have resolved. Right?
When is the period of time that they're contagious? Do you have?
I'm sorry, yeah, it's from 2 to 14 days after exposure. Yeah.
That long?
It is, and that's why they kind of put that 14 days self-quarantine on, or 10 days. Typically, it's 10 days or 3 days without fever-reducing medications, but if people aren't feeling well, that 10 days is kind of long and gone before that fever is.
Are the people that are asymptomatic, do they only carry it for 14 days?
They only carry it for, they're only infectious?
How long can they infect people before it passes, the ones that are asymptomatic?
They will stay home for the 14 days. There's not a lot of knowledge about those who are testing asymptomatic, and how long that they can potentially infect. That's still kind of a lot of that newness that we don't know about with coronavirus, but they would automatically be quarantined for those 14 days. So.
What I think too, Teresa, how much is this airborne? Is that a reality with this as well?
So what they say with the airborne part of it, with wearing your N95s, they have moved from the N95 to a simple face mask because of the large particles that are supposedly released and that would be covered with a simple face mask. Now we are reserving our N95s for aerosolizing procedures at the hospital, so we are saving those for like nebulizers, intubation, where you can work up some of those smaller particles that wouldn't protect you with just a simple face mask. But again, did we move to that because we didn't have enough supply, or there's a lot of controversy with that.
Isn't the other two coronaviruses, isn't that how they moved around to be?
SARS and MERS.
Yeah. It's through air.
Yeah. They say it's droplet airborne, but again, recommendations right now is for sure the N95s with the aerosolizing procedures, and that they're recommending that a simple face mask is suffice for just interaction between one another. So, but any other questions or comments? The quarantine with 2 little gals myself really has caused me to be a little nuts every once in a while. But make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're staying hydrated, and getting outside and just taking care of you, because again, you won't be able to run this operation and be a huge part of our community if you're not here to be able to work.